even within the purview of Section 305. And he has violated the Constitution because he was not properly advised to respect that section of the Constitution. In what regard did he violate that section of the Constitution? In fact, he acted as the dictator by saying that the administrator that he has appointed can make regulations and laws will be made for the River State House of Assembly henceforth by the Federal Executive Council. The Federal Executive Council does not have such powers.
Yes, hello guys. This is the Comrade Show. My name is Comrade Lamte. Very quickly, let's go into this. Today, one of the biggest news in and around Nigeria is the issue of the state of emergency imposed on River State by the President of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and of course ratified by the National Assembly. Of course, there are a number of people, eminent personalities in Nigeria, legal luminaries who have found fault in the declaration of Mr. President, in the process, and everything around this state of emergency that has been imposed on River State, to the extent that the governor of River State has been booted out of office, the deputy has been booted out of office, the State House of Assembly have also been booted out by way of suspension. Now, this is our Nigeria. This is Tinubu's Nigeria. But why everybody is speaking to this matter? Some with Mr. President and others against Mr. President. One thing most Nigerians agree with is that Nigeria is not going towards the right direction. One thing most Nigerians agree with is that Nigeria right now is not on the right path. Now, I take my mind back. I'm taking my mind back because oftentimes there is that reference by everybody, politicians and the masses alike, referring to the founding fathers of Nigeria, and people inferring that the founding fathers of Nigeria wanted Nigeria to go a better direction. You hear people commonly say that is not what our founding fathers wanted. Now the question is, are we right to give this kind of attention or respect or whatever you may to the founding fathers? Did the founding fathers, as referred and inferred by Nigerians, did they actually mean well for this country? Did they even have any patriotic spirit to the extent that they wanted to see a Nigeria that will be governed by respect for the rule of law and orderliness? I have looked at the political history of Nigeria. I have looked through the nationalist movement down to where we had our independence and all of the disagreements, our development by way of having political parties and all of that. The early leaders, the prime minister, the only one we've had, the governor general, and all of the political leaders we've had. I've looked through their trajectory and the Nigeria trajectory, as it were. And I look at where we are. And somehow I seem to find fault in the reference or inference that refers to our founding fathers and what they wanted for Nigeria. But I think I'll leave that aspect for another debate. But I want to bring our mind back, closely to what many of us, to a scenario that many of us can easily remember. In 1989, I was in secondary school. I was a young person in secondary school. In 1989, we had, as the president of Nigeria, the president and commander-in-chief of armed forces, in the head of state of Nigeria, as Ibrahim Baramusi Babangida. His government was cruel to the Nigerian people. It was a government laden with corruption, highly repressive, highly oppressive. I still remember even as a young man at the time. But there was something remarkable in 1989. Please stay with me. Don't go away. It is a commercial show. Something remarkable in 1989. In 1989, Nigerians had no hope. But there was some light in the future of this country, in that Nigerians have gone many years of military rule. And the only thing that appeared to be hope for Nigerians was if we could get a democracy. And so the fight by many Nigerians, activists and otherwise, was to fight the military to give us civil rule, to give us a democratic process where we would have a government that is of the people, by the people, and for the people. There was so much effort in that direction. So the idea that one day would come and we'll have a democratic rule was one that sustained Nigerians across board. And every effort by every well-meaning Nigerian, you would say, would be to pressure the military, as then led by Ibrahim Babangida, to give us a democratic process. And some of the people at the forefront at that time were students, civil society groups. But in 1989, something remarkable happened. Babangida came up with a policy called the Structural Adjustment Program, SAP. Now, when that program was announced by the government of Babangida, it was hugely resisted. And of course, the resistance of that arrangement threw Nigeria into pandemonium. And then there was this famous anti-SAP riot. There's a point I'm going to. Please don't stay with me. Don't go away. Famous anti-SAP riot. Now, for many people who may not, be aware, of what happened then, there are those, my generation, of course, older generations who remember quite well. Now, there are a few things that many others may not, have taken into cognizance, which is why I'm making this broadcast, because it all refers, around what we are experiencing today in this country, and the reason why our hope as a nation may be a dead hope. In 1989, I think it was on around April or so, April 4th, if I'm not mistaken, the protests against SAP, the anti-SAP riot, actually started from University of Benin. Yes, you heard me right. University of Benin students were the first to troop out, to start the resistance. Now, some students were, as a matter of fact, at the apogee, at the very apex of that arrangement. We had Ogaga Ifowodo. Ogaga Ifowodo happened at that time to be the Secretary General of the Student Union Government University of Benin, famously called the SUG. He was vocal, intelligent, highly pragmatic, a visionary leader, and one who spoke fearlessly. Ogaga Ifowodo was at the forefront, emancipating Nigerian students, emancipating Nigerians, to stand in resistance to this crude military arrangement that was set to impoverish Nigerians, keep Nigerians under, and of course, diminish every hope of having a democratic rule. Another notable personality that spearheaded the 1989 civil rule. 1989 anti-SAP riots was a man called Honorable Okbayemi Bamidele, who had served at various positions in OAU and Uniben at the time. He was a law student at the University of Benin. He was the president of the National Association of Nigerian Students. And at one time, if not that same time, he was also the PRO of the SUG government of the University of Benin. He was vocal, he was in the forefront. Okbayemi Bamidele and Ogaga Ifodu, they were the ones who set Nigeria alert when it came to anti-SAP riots. And of course, Nigerian students from University of Benin evaporated and began to pose resistance to this program. Within the next 24 to 48 hours, Nigerian students in Lagos, University of Lagos, started trooping out. Before you knew what was happening, from the rivers of our own Delta region to the rainforest region of Ondo, down to Lagos, through the middle belt of Benue Plateau, and down to the northern part of Nigeria, Nigeria became ungovernable because Nigerian students seized the opportunity to say, it is time. They resisted the SAP program by Baramuse Ibrahim Babangida. I was a young person in secondary school. I probably didn't even know my left from my right, but I did know all that happened around me. I remember on one of these occasions, Nigerian students somewhere around Ring Road in Benin City, they were standing on one side with boldness, with stones, sticks in their hands. They maintained a line. And on the opposite side, just a few meters in between, were Nigerian soldiers with their armor, with everything they've got, with guns, with tear gas, with everything. And of course, the Nigerian students did not move their lines. They stood in that protest without fear, with courage. And the likes of Ogaga, the likes of Bamidele Okbayemi, they spoke to the spirit of the Nigerian people. And of course, the Nigerian nation responded. That program was resisted with everything that Nigerians had. And the pictures that I'm showing you right now, the one on the top is that of Ogaga Ifodu, and the one beneath is currently that of Okbayemi Bamidele. I'm coming to a point. In the course of that anti-SAP riot, a few Nigerians lost their lives. Some Nigerians did lose their lives. So many things were destroyed. A lot of things happened in that process. And of course, the military were pushed back. Parts of the elements of the SAP program, the military government began to look into some of those things to address those issues and the fears of Nigerians, led by these two gentlemen. Now, when things calm down, there was this hope. There was this air of hope that migrated from person to person, soul to soul, individual to individual, all across the nation, particularly felt in Benin, particularly felt in Delta, in Ondo, in Ogun, in Lagos, everywhere. What was that air of hope? That air of hope was in these two men and many others, many unsung heroes of that particular movement. And that hope was that maybe someday when democracy comes, men like this will become the shoulders upon which our democracy will thrive, because they were astute. They were people who stood in the face of imminent death. They stood their ground, unmoved, in defense of the freedom of the people of Nigeria, in defense of the sanctity of the people of Nigeria. These men represented so many others who may not have been seen, but who stood their ground equally. The hope that we have people like this was the kind of hope that spread around this country to make people believe very strong that indeed when democracy comes on the shoulders of these men, Nigeria would be a beautiful state that everybody can believe in once again. That has been over 30 years ago. That was the story of Nigeria. Now, when you fast forward from then till now the question everybody is asking is what happened? In fairness to Ogaga Ifowodo did not go through the political lines. Ogaga Ifowodo is an accomplished writer right now, he's a poet. He's doing his thing privately. But many of those heroes unsung, and even the ones that we can remember, majorly somebody, like Okpayemi Bamidele. He, of course, followed that trend. Very enlightened, highly educated, an astute lawyer. As a matter of fact, at the end of that SAP riot, Ogaga Ifowodo and Okpayemi Bamidele were both rusticated from the University of Benin. And of course, somebody like Femi Falana and some other lawyers stood their ground to say, no, this cannot happen. They gave them representation. And they won the case. And about 2 years after, they came back to the University of Benin to finish their programs when, of course, the court pronounced that, of course, they were rusticated unjustly. These were men at the time. And it would be easy at that time for everybody to be hopeful, to believe that, yes, the future of this country is indeed bright. Let's move from 1989 and come down to 2025. Okpayemi is a politician. For those who may not know, Okpayemi Bamidele currently is the Senate Majority Leader. Now, his story did not just start here. Okpayemi served as a PA to the current president of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He also served as a commissioner when Bola Ahmed Tinubu was the governor of Lagos State. And today, Nigeria is confronted with the highest injustice, as it were. Nigeria is confronted with all sorts of maladministration. Nigeria is confronted with erosion of justice. Nigeria is confronted with the challenges that were in the days of Muhammadu Buhari, that were in the days of Baramusi Babangida. And yet, those men who stood there to defend the hope of Nigerians, those men who stood there to say injustice cannot happen in this country against Nigerians, most of them today are in high places. Of note is Okpayemi Bamidele, who, as the nation weep over the level of injustice being perpetuated by the Tinubu's administration, Okpayemi Bamidele He's currently one of those fanning the flame of this same injustice. He's currently one of those defending the unjust actions of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, whom, of course, erudite scholars, lawyers, and everybody has come out to see the declaration of state of emergency gazetted as it affects Rivers State and the suspension of the governor of Rivers State and his deputy and all of that. Okay, and currently being ratified by the National Assembly. As a matter of fact, has been ratified by the National Assembly. As a matter of fact, one of those who ensure that it was ratified at the National Assembly is Opayemi Bamidele. The same Opayemi Bamidele who stood against injustice as a student. Today, he's the one who is romancing fully with those in government. Today, he is the one who is defending the injustice perpetuated by the likes of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, because he himself right now has become one that Nigerians must fight against. This is one story, and I thought this is a story that we need to reflect on. We have had one Adams Oshiomhole in this country, who was a labor leader, notable, who stood his ground and appeared, as a matter of fact, to have represented the Nigerian workers and Nigerian people against oppression, against repression by military administrations in this country. Today, many people can argue very safely that Adams Oshiomhole, who is now a senator from Edo State, is one of the oppressors of the Nigerian people. He's one of those who cannot speak against repression, who cannot speak against maladministration, who cannot speak against the wickedness taking place, perpetuated by those in government, because he is part of them now. And it brings to mind that fundamental question: where lies the hope for the common Nigerian? For the way it seems, it looks like we are just going to make the noise from here to wherever. Okay? They are not going to listen, and nothing is going to happen in this same country. In this same country. Because we, make judgments, ask for the release of, Nnamdi Kanu, for instance, just an example, a court order to that effect. But if Mr. President do not sanction that, it will not be honored, and yet nothing will happen. This is what Okonkwo have to say concerning this. Just an essay, what he had to say concerning this state of